Have you guys watched Disclosure Day yet? I just finished it, and honestly, I feel like there's so much packed into this movie that I didn't even expect. Now remember, this is mainstream entertainment. It is a movie directly by Steven Spielberg. So when you start looking at the themes here that they chose to include, that they were allowed to include, yes, they had to get permission, it's not hard to notice a lot of interesting patterns. The first thing that stood out to me was that the message of some people connected to higher forms of intelligence or cosmic knowledge or awakening experiences may not be fully remembering them yet. Throughout the entire film, there are repeated themes centering around memory and activation and remembering who you are. And that was interesting to me because it was less like the traditional alien invasion movie and more like a story about awakening into cosmic knowledge. Now, did they use fear? Absolutely. There were fear-based elements that were woven throughout this entire film, but it's also what you would expect from mainstream media, so use it with a grain of salt. Fear keeps people engaged in their entertainment, and that's what sells the tickets. Fear sells tickets. But underneath that layer, there are some fascinating concepts. The movie showed advanced surveillance systems and massive intelligence operations, and they also had direct energy technologies and mind control themes, and there was memory erasing technologies that were in this movie, and the lengths that the government or military organizations would go to control information. There were scenes that were involving crystals that were used to interact with people's energy fields. They also influence perception, and they even manipulate what people could see or not see. So they're giving you a formal education on what these type of crystalline powers can actually do. They also explored the idea that non-human intelligence might just appear differently depending on what the observer sees, or even project a calming imagery to reduce the fear. Another major theme was disclosure itself. Mainstream media characters didn't seem to know at all what was happening. They were not formally educated. They were just simply reporting on what they could physically see and comprehend. That stood out to me because what that suggests is that when larger truths do emerge, many journalists, the people that you trust, the news outlets, those type of people, they will not necessarily have any of the answers for you. They are just simply reporting events and reading a teleprompter as the story unfolds. So again, not the best source to get your news. They also touched on religion, suggesting that humanity's understanding of spirituality and reality itself may eventually expand beyond some of our current framework. But this guy is feverishly going after the two main characters because the one has information on alien interrogation, and honestly, by the very end of the movie, this guy seemed like so exhausted by the secrets, the manipulation, the control, and instead of stopping the reporter, he simply sat down and allowed the truth to be told. I thought that was a pretty symbolic message that the information itself just becomes too big to contain. But what surprised me most was the emotional reaction. There was a visitation scene that involved this young boy, bright lights, there was fear there, he was hyperventilating, he was in a sterilized environment, heavy breathing again, overwhelming confusion. Honestly, this scene hit me the hardest. I had to look away because it was very close to the experience that I had with the Greys. It felt like a emotionally similar experience to what I have spoken about my own encounter and my experiences in my own childhood. The feeling that something extraordinary was happening but not fully understanding what exactly that is. Then they erase your memory so you don't remember it throughout your entire childhood, throughout your entire adult life. A lot of you have been a part of these alien abductions and you don't even know it. That's also a reason why disclosure is really important, that we drip drop this pace, because a lot of people cannot handle that type of information. They'll go into a spiritual psychosis. They'll do terrible things just because they can't fully understand. But a lot of people are going to be more open with this. This opens the possibility to higher emotions that are involved with non-human intelligence. This scene literally almost brought me to tears because it felt so familiar in a way that I was not expecting them to catch. So whether you view this movie as fiction or symbology or predictive programming or disclosure or just simply entertainment trying to sell tickets to you and controlling the narrative, I do think that is worth watching. Not because it gives answers, but because it does raise some very interesting questions that I think the normal human population is wanting. And sometimes the questions are where awakening begins. So what did you notice in Disclosure Day? What stood out to you? Let me know in the comments. I'm Sarah Starr, your galactic guide, here with Disclosure on Disclosure Day by Steven Spielberg. Did you watch it yet?